Hey guys, how's it going? Hope you're doing well. My name is Crown, and today I'm going to read you some very interesting stories that I hope that you're gonna love. And now, without further ado, let's go! I got some revenge on a douchebag I used to volunteer firefight with. This was in the early/mid 2000s. I decided to go to the local fire department as a volunteer firefighter. I did it for about 5 years and it was great. Training consisted of 3 months of fire training, 2 nights a week, and all day Saturday. And then you would go to EMT training, another 3 months of training. I was about a year in. I was asked to help train some new recruits. One of the new lieutenants, Amy, was a short middle-aged woman who was so full of fire she could make a grown man cry. One of those people who commands both fear and respect wherever she goes. Honestly, a great lieutenant and a great person. When she wasn't being a drill sergeant, she was extremely kind and generous. She would often bake people cakes and treats and deliver them to the various stations in our department. However, in this new academy class that I was asked to help with, there was a cocky kid that we will call Aaron. Aaron talked big during the training and acted like he was the all-American hero, like he was going to be the lead tough guy in Backdraft 2. He performed moderately well in training but far from the top of the class. He gets assigned to Amy's station, which is a pretty quiet station in the department. A few months after he starts, Amy swings by my station one night to say hi. She brings us the motherload cake from Claim Jumper. Massive 6-layer cake. She explained that she had treated her crew to a night out at Claim Jumper, which must have cost a lot of money. I think she took about 8 people and bought a whole cake to top it all off. They had eaten the first 2 layers, so she gave us the remaining 4. We thanked her profusely, and she left. Back then, the big social media platform was MySpace, and I decided to look up some of the people in the department to make friends. I came across Aaron's page, and I noticed some photos of him and the rest of his crew at Claim Jumper with Amy. However, when I read the comments, he bragged about how he had purposefully ordered the most expensive dinner, appetizers, and drinks since Amy was buying. He bragged about how he was going to take advantage of her stupidity. This alone pissed me off because she was doing this super nice and generous. What an ungrateful, selfish jerk. Then I read the rest of his profile. He had videos and memes of his page glorifying himself as a tough guy firefighter, bragging about running into burning buildings and how he was such a hero. He was flirting with girls, blatantly trying to impress them with how brave he is. Bear in mind, he just graduated from the academy 3 months prior and hadn't even gone to EMT school. He had never been to a house fire, and all he basically did was carry gear for the other fully qualified firefighters. It was too much for me to tolerate. So here is the revenge. I printed off copies of his MySpace page, including his comments about Amy and toxic bragging. I made multiple copies and took them to every station in the department. We all have pagers, God I'm old, and a small keyboard at each station to send out text messages. I made an anonymous all-stab page to everyone in the department. I had to keep it brief since I couldn't fit a ton of characters, but I sent out his MySpace information and told everyone about how he treated Amy. Within an hour, Aaron had cleared out his MySpace page of all the posts, photos, and so on. A couple of days later, he deleted his account. It's a good thing I made so many copies. Immediately after this happened, he stopped coming to volunteer, and a few weeks later, I heard that he had quit. I later talked to Amy and admitted I was the one who sent the page. I told her I hated how he treated her, and she thanked me. She seemed really sad and hurt by what he had done. But being the tough, short lady that she was, she quickly got back into being an actual tough guy firefighter. She later started dating and married the fire chief that also helped at the academy. I've lost touch with her, but I hope she did well. She seemed pretty happy last time I saw her. I've always been a hard-working person, and I've never taken anything for granted. I grew up with humble beginnings, and learned the value of hard work at an early age. I started my own business repairing and restoring antique furniture, and I took great pride in my work. I was a skilled craftsman and a true lover of history, and I enjoyed sharing my knowledge and passion with others. One day, I decided to put some of my antiques on display at a local flea market, and at the same time I listed my heirloom antique on display but with a big sign under it saying, "Not for sale." You may ask me why then you put it there if it was not for sale. Well, I like having conversation with genuine collectors about this piece I have. They always find it fascinating and go on about how it's perfectly crafted, and I always love to talk about its history and how it ended up with me to others who may seem interested and into this kind of stuff. The heirloom antique that I was showing at the flea market was a beautiful and valuable piece that had been passed down through my family for generations. It was an intricately carved wooden box with a gold leaf detailing and a beautiful hand-painted scene on the top. The scene depicted a serene forest with a clear stream running through it, and it was so lifelike that it almost seemed as if you could reach out and touch the trees and water. The antique was more than just a beautiful object to me. It was also a family heirloom with great sentimental value. It had been passed down through my family for hundreds of years and had been treasured by each generation. I had always been fascinated by its history and had spent many hours researching its provenance and learning about the people who had owned it before me. I knew that the antique was worth a great deal of money, but I had never considered selling it, and it was not for sale, and I had no intention of ever letting it go. And that's when a lady, Karen, approached me and asked me if it was for sale. Karen was a woman who exuded entitlement and believed that the rules did not apply to her. She was used to getting her way and was not afraid to use her charms or threats to get what she wanted. She was attractive and well-dressed, and she knew how to use her appearance to her advantage. When I first met Karen at the flea market, I had no idea what kind of person she was. I thought she was just another shopper who was interested in my antiques. But as soon as I told her that the antique she was interested in was not for sale, she became angry and demanding. "Hello, can I help you?" I asked as Karen approached my booth at the flea market. "Yes, I'm interested in that antique," Karen replied, pointing to the intricately carved wooden box with gold leaf detailing. "How much are you asking for it?" "I'm sorry, but that antique is not for sale," I explained. "It's a family heirloom and it's not up for grabs." Karen's demeanor changed immediately. "What do you mean it's not for sale? I'll pay whatever price you're asking. Just name your price." "I'm sorry, but I can't sell it to you," I repeated. "It's not about the money. This antique has been passed down through my family for generations, and it has great sentimental value to me. I couldn't part with it even if I wanted to." Karen's eyes narrowed and she crossed her arms over her chest. "I don't seem to understand. I want that antique and I'm willing to pay for it. If you don't sell it to me, you will regret it." I stood my ground and refused to be intimidated. "I'm sorry, but my answer is still no. I am not going to sell you something that doesn't belong to me. You'll have to find something else to buy." Karen's face contorted in anger. "Fine, I'll just take it then. You'll be sorry you crossed me." I stood in shock as Karen snatched the antique from my hands and tried to flee. I couldn't believe that she was trying to steal from me in broad daylight in front of all these people. I knew I had to do something to stop her, so I chased after her as she ran towards her car. I caught up with her just as she was about to get into her driver's seat, and I grabbed her arm to try and stop her. "Let go of me!" she yelled, trying to shake me off. But I refused to let go, determined to retrieve my family's antique. "You're not getting away with this," I said firmly. "You need to give that back to me and face the consequences of your actions." Karen's face got real angry and she reached into her purse, pulling out a can of pepper spray, and she sprayed it directly into my face, causing me to stumble back and fall to the ground. I was taken aback when Karen sprayed me with the pepper spray, and I immediately fell to the ground blinded and in pain. My eyes burned and watered, and I couldn't see a thing. I could hear Karen's footsteps going into her car, and I knew that she was getting away with my family's antique. Despite the pain and disorientation, I was determined not to let her get away with her crime. I forced myself to my feet and blindly stumbled toward the sound of her car. I knew I had to stop her, no matter what it took. As I moved towards her hazy figure, I could feel a fierce determination welling up inside me. I was not going to let her steal my family's heirloom and get away with it. I pushed myself forward, determined to tackle her to the ground and retrieve the antique. I managed to catch up with her just as she was getting into the driver's seat, and I lunged at her, tackling her to the ground. She screamed and struggled, but I held on tightly, determined to stop her from escaping. "Help! Somebody help me!" I shouted, hoping that someone would hear me and come to my aid. "Security! Somebody call security!" It seemed like an eternity before I finally heard the sound of footsteps and voices approaching. I looked up to see a group of people running towards me, and I breathed a sigh of relief. Finally, I thought someone has come to help. As a group of people approached, I felt a pair of hands pulling at me, trying to pry me off of Karen. "Let go of her! What are you trying to do, steal from her?" a voice shouted. I was confused and disoriented, and it took me a moment to realize what was happening. I looked up to see a group of people trying to pull me off of Karen, and I was shocked to see that they were accusing me of trying to steal from her. No, you don't understand," I cried out, trying to explain what had happened. "She stole from me, she took my antique and tried to run off with it." "That's not true," Karen yelled, struggling to free herself from my grasp. "He's the one who attacked me, he's trying to steal from me." Just then I heard the sound of other voices speaking up, declaring that they had witnessed Karen snatching the antique from my hands. "That's not true. We saw her take it. He was just trying to stop her." I felt a surge of relief wash over me as the truth began to come out. Finally, I thought someone understands what happened. I heard the sound of police and ambulance sirens approaching, and I knew that help was on the way. The ordeal was almost over. As the police arrived on the scene, I felt a sense of relief wash over me. I knew that they would be able to sort out the truth and bring justice to the situation. I watched as the officers approached us, trying to verify the witness statements about Karen snatching the antique and me chasing after her. They asked questions and took notes, trying to get a clear understanding of what had happened. At the same time, the paramedics were tending to both Karen and me, trying to help us with our injuries. They applied the saline solution to my eyes. To help flush out the pepper spray, and they treated Karen for her scrapes and bruises. As the officers continued to gather information and verify the witness statements, I could see that they were starting to piece together the truth of the situation. They seemed to be convinced that Karen was in the wrong, and I could see them preparing to arrest her. But Karen was not going down without a fight. As the officer approached her to cuff her, she reached into her purse and pulled out the pepper spray again, and she sprayed the officer in the face, causing him to stumble back and fall to the ground. The other officer immediately stepped in and threatened Karen with his taser. "Don't move. Drop the pepper spray and get on the ground," he shouted. Karen hesitated for a moment, and I could see the fear and confusion in her eyes. But she didn't listen to the officer's warning. Instead, she lunged at him, trying to grab his taser. The officer quickly reacted, tasering Karen and bringing her down to the ground. It was only then that they were able to safely cuff her and take her into custody. As the officers led Karen away, I couldn't help but feel a sense of satisfaction knowing that justice had been served. It had been a long and difficult journey, but I was grateful to have my family's antique back and to see Karen held accountable for her actions. As the legal proceedings against Karen began, it became clear that she was not going to go down without a fight. She hired a high-priced lawyer and did everything in her power to try and get out of the charges that were being pressed against her. In court, Karen acted like a jerk, trying to intimidate and bully her way out of the charges. She argued with the judge and tried to blame me for everything that had happened, saying that I was the one who had attacked her and that she had only been acting in self-defense. But the judge was not swayed by her arguments, and he listened patiently as I testified against her and presented the evidence that proved her guilt. The witnesses also testified, confirming that Karen had snatched the antique from my hands and fled the scene. In the end, the judge ruled in my favor and sentenced Karen to probation and ordered her to pay restitution for the value of the stolen antique. But Karen's bad attitude and entitlement did not stop there. Despite her initial sentence of probation and restitution, Karen's bad attitude and entitled behavior continued to land her in hot water. She refused to take responsibility for her actions and continued to cause problems, leading to additional charges being pressed against her. In the end, Karen's entitlement and refusal to accept responsibility for her actions caught up with her, and she received a prison sentence for her crimes. It was a hard lesson, but one that I hoped she would learn from and turn her life around. As for me, I was just grateful to have my family's antique back and to see justice served. It had been a long and difficult journey, but I knew that I had done the right thing by standing up for what was rightfully mine and holding Karen accountable for her actions. I hope that others would learn from this experience and realize that entitlement and aggression will only get you so far in life, and eventually, the consequences of your actions will catch up with you. I have been working at this Southern comfort food restaurant for about 6 years in pretty much all front of house positions except for manager, so I was well versed in each position, and in this particular story being the hostess, it wasn't uncommon for guests to change their reservation, whether it be time, party size, seating arrangements, and so on. The most challenging change was always the party size updates. Unless a manager approved, we typically could only take parties as large as 8 people, as it was quite the popular brunch spot and the maximum capacity was like 120 or something, but we only had around 40 tables including the patio. The largest tables could only seat 6 people comfortably, but we would make accommodations by putting tables together. Anyway, every Sunday for the first 3 to 4 hours, we would have back-to-back reservations for every table, and the timing was very tight. This is more of a general issue we ran into, where for some reason we would always have parties of anywhere between 12 to 20 people in reservations, because money is money, right? Usually, only half the party would show up and create more problems, as now they have multiple tables that I wasn't able to seat for people without reservation. On the flip side, lots of parties would reserve for 8 people and call a few minutes before their allotted time and say 10 or so more people were coming. Obviously, this was an issue as they had nowhere to sit, but would constantly blame it on me, as if I'm the one who couldn't stop inviting people to their 8-person reservation. So I then had the bright idea to start letting people know that we have room for them on the other side of the restaurant on the outside patio, which we left unreserved. First come, first serve. More often than not, this bit me in the booty, but I complied with their last-minute reservation change on the busiest time of the busiest day of the week, maliciously. At least they got to enjoy some delicious fried chicken. P.S. This doubles as malicious compliance with my manager's decisions to allow large party reservations, leaving me to deal with a backlash. It may be pity, but I was 18. And now we have reached the end of today's stories. Thank you for watching and see you next time.